I figured since no one else would, I would step up. This one is directed at Drew, and I just kind of wanted to reiterate what he told me on Facebook. Recently, the legislature voted down in committee the ability to allow the state driver's license, our driver's license test to be administered in Spanish. And I know, Mike, you spoke out in favor of this bill because it's good for the workforce. We want immigrants to feel included and to be able to find work. And one of the ways that you do that in this state is the ability to drive. And that was shot down, and I just want to hear why. Thank you.
Actually, a great question, Adam. Mike was one of the people that contacted me to vote yes, so he might not like the way I did vote no on the bill, but I did feel in the committee hearing that was in House State Affairs Committee, and it was killed on a vote of, I believe it was 8-5, so it was a fairly close vote. And I was probably the most conflicted person in the committee. On one hand, well, let's start over. My personal opinion or my personal belief is that it's best for everyone who is here to either know English or eventually come to learn it. I think that's just my personal thoughts on what's best. So the proponents came before us and said, this is a really good bill for workforce development, and I would agree with that, and it's really good to help people who don't know English now to learn English. If you get them to work, they'll learn English. The opponents, on the other hand, said if you are going to have someone who doesn't know English and there's really no reason for them to learn English, and if you start having these government documents be provided in other languages, they're going to be less likely to learn it in the long run. I didn't see any data on that, and I kind of wish I would have, because if I could have saw solid data that suggested that what the proponent said is going to happen, I possibly could have been swayed to a yes vote. The other thing that kind of won it over for me at the end was most of the people who contacted me from here in Aberdeen were encouraging me to vote no. I don't know what the majority of the people in this room feel or what their thoughts on it are, but about 2/3 of the people that I spoke with said no, and that was what put me over the top on a no vote. But it was actually a very, very good discussion to have, and I think I got a lot out of the debate, and I would very much anticipate that this bill will be reintroduced next year, and probably it'll pass the Senate again and probably come before the same committee. So if I could just see more data suggesting one way or the other, that would help me get to a more solid decision, because I was conflicted in how I voted on that.
Sometimes you have to use the information that's available to you and that you have the opportunity to gain as a member of the legislature. The Sioux Falls, most all of the chambers in the state, chambers of commerce, were in favor of this bill. How can you become a member of the workforce if you can't drive a car? It's pretty straightforward. They weren't, all this bill said was that the exam had to be in Spanish. It did not say road signs have to be in Spanish. It's an opportunity he lost for another year. Senator Nessebar did a great job of, and the chambers did a great job of educating the legislators. But nevertheless, it did hit the roadblock that it did in that committee. It's a workforce issue, is what we heard over and over again. We don't have enough workers. We have immigrants filling jobs in several different industries, and particularly in the construction industry, when it's roads or you're trying to get to a job site. That's where Hispanics are are helping us fill our workforce needs. So I just think that we have a responsibility to, and it's also one of the things then that makes our voters not understand our votes sometimes. But we have the opportunity and responsibility to react to the information that we're provided. And of course, we use our own experience, and of course, our own principles. But in this case, when it's so cut and dry that we have a workforce shortage, and that the chambers of commerce were telling us that this was an important piece of addressing our workforce shortage, it's too bad that we don't get to get going on this right now. The cost of it was less than, I think it ended up being $15,000. It was the cost of one new printing of the exams. And actually, this is something that Department of Public Safety could go ahead and do on its own, but I seriously doubt they're going to be doing that yet this year.